Imagine this: you meet someone new, and there's an instant spark. She smiles a little longer at you than at others. Her voice dips slightly when she says your name, and you feel the rush, that intoxicating pull that makes you think this is different. But somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a faint alarm bell. It's quiet at first. You ignore it because you want to believe. You want the story to be beautiful. Yet that small sound is your mind whispering, something here doesn't add up. And most men never listen to it until it's too late. Walking into a trap in modern dating isn't about meeting a bad person. It's about stepping into a dynamic where the rules aren't what you think they are. She might not even consciously plan it, but the effect is the same. You invest more, you adjust more, you give more, and you start losing the frame without realizing it. You begin to confuse attraction with attachment and interest with investment, and the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to pull yourself back. The first sign is when her interest feels unpredictable. One day, she's warm, laughing at everything you say, leaning in close. The next, she's distant, replies slower, suddenly busy. Most men take this as a challenge. They think, I'll just prove myself more. They double text, plan more elaborate dates, compliment more often, just to get back to that first wave of warmth. What they don't realize is that this is the trap. The fluctuation itself is the hook. That unpredictability keeps you chasing. Here's the tactical truth: if you notice her energy shift drastically for no clear reason, don't chase to fix it. Pull back and match her level of engagement. This isn't playing games, it's preserving your position. Because if you condition yourself to reward inconsistency with more effort, you've already handed over the power. Another sign is when conversations subtly shift from curiosity to qualification. Early on, she asks about your life, your opinions, your dreams, because she's feeling you out. But then, questions turn into subtle tests. Why aren't you free this weekend? Do you always talk to other women like that? You're not the kind of guy who would... Right. Each one seems harmless, but there's small hooks pulling you towards seeking approval. And the moment you start explaining yourself instead of simply stating who you are, you've shifted from leading to defending. When this happens, the move is simple. Stop over-explaining. Respond with calm clarity, not justification. For example, instead of saying, "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way," it's just that you simply say, "That's not how it is," then change the subject or move on. You don't fight to prove innocence. You let your consistency speak over time. One of the most dangerous traps isn't in her words, it's in her silence. The attention withdrawal. Maybe you said something she didn't like. Maybe you set a boundary. Maybe you simply didn't respond fast enough. And suddenly, the warmth vanishes. She's quieter, slower, colder. For many men, this feels unbearable. They scramble to get back into her good graces, apologizing for things they don't believe were wrong, just to end the discomfort. That's when the dynamic flips. You're no longer responding to her as an equal. You're performing to avoid punishment. In real time, the way to break this is to lean into the silence instead of trying to break it. If she pulls back, don't rush to fill the gap. You match the pace. You let her decide if she wants to re-engage. This doesn't just protect your dignity, it filters out people who rely on silent treatment as control. Then there's overinvestment. This is when you start spending more emotional, mental, and financial energy than her actions justify. You're buying gifts, rearranging your schedule, and making her the centerpiece of your day, all before she's shown equal commitment. It's not generosity at that point. It's a bet you're placing on a future that might not exist. And the more you've invested, the harder it is to walk away, even when it's clearly not healthy. The fix here is brutally simple. Slow down your giving until her actions match yours, If she's putting in minimal effort, you keep your effort proportional. You can still be kind and attentive, but you don't extend yourself beyond the return. This isn't about winning, it's about refusing to lose yourself. The final, most subtle sign is when you notice your self-image shifting, not because you've grown, but because you've adapted. You start avoiding certain topics, changing your style, softening your opinions, just to keep the peace or keep her impressed. This is the slow death of authenticity, and it's where most men lose themselves entirely. If you feel this happening, the move is to reintroduce your real self immediately. Bring up the opinions you've been holding back. Wear what you actually like. Stop hiding the parts of you that make you you. If she can't accept that, better to find out now than after you've built your world around a mask. Every trap has one thing in common. It works because you want to believe this is special. You think losing a bit of yourself is a fair price to keep her, but the truth is, the moment you start trading pieces of yourself for temporary peace, you've already begun to lose more than you can ever gain. Have you ever chased harder when she pulled away, thinking it would bring her closer? What happened? Have you caught yourself over-explaining or apologizing for things you didn't really do wrong? Which of these signs feels the most familiar to you right now? Be honest in the comments. Here's the thing most men don't want to admit when you walk into a trap. It's rarely because she was so much smarter than you. It's because you were so much hungrier for her attention than for your own self-respect. That hunger clouds your vision. You stop asking yourself the hard questions, and you start playing a role in her story instead of living your own. The moment you start bending your time, your mood, and your priorities around how she's treating you today, you've entered her frame, and inside her frame, she gets to set the value of your time, your mood, and your presence. This is where the manipulation gets invisible because she doesn't have to say, "I want to control you." She only has to react in ways that make you want to adjust yourself without her asking. One of the clearest signals you're deep in the trap is when you start seeking emotional paychecks from her. You know what I mean? Those little moments of validation you wait for a certain text, a compliment, a sign she's thinking of you. When you don't get them, you feel restless. You check your phone more. You reread old conversations. You start thinking of ways to remind her you exist. That's not love. That's dependence. And dependence is a leash. Here's the tactical counter: replace the emotional paycheck with your own currency. If you feel that restless pull to seek her attention, redirect it into something that gives you a win outside of her finish a workout. Close a deal. Start a project. It's not about ignoring her. It's about reminding your brain that your mood doesn't have to live in her pocket. Another trap is the escalation of investment without escalation of clarity. She lets you spend more time, more effort, more intimacy, but avoids locking in what you are to each other. She'll give just enough to keep you leaning forward, but never enough to let you stand still and feel secure. This works because uncertainty makes you chase harder. You start thinking, if I just keep showing her I'm serious, she'll choose me. But often, that's exactly why she's keeping it undefined, because the undefined state keeps you working for it. The move here is simple but terrifying. For most men, you ask for clarity, and you accept the answer without negotiation. If she says she's not ready for anything serious while still enjoying all the benefits of your commitment, you believe her, and you start adjusting your involvement to match her words, not your hopes. Pay attention, too, to how she reacts when you say no. The trap becomes clear the moment you stop going along with everything. Decline an invite because you're busy. Say you're not up for a favor. Watch the shift. If she respects it and continues engaging normally, she's playing fair. If she pouts, punishes, or pulls away to get you back in line, you're not in a relationship, you're in a control structure. This is where most men crack, because the silence, the coldness, or the guilt trip triggers a deep fear of loss. You start imagining her with someone else, moving on, forgetting you, and to avoid that pain, you go back to compliance. This is why detachment is the ultimate weapon, not to hurt her, but to protect yourself from being ruled by fear. Real detachment doesn't mean ignoring her. It means you're willing to walk away without burning yourself down in the process. It means your world doesn't collapse if she removes her approval. You don't beg, you don't bargain, you assess and decide. And when a man carries that energy, something changes. She knows she can't hook you with absence. She can't bait you with half commitment. And she can't scare you into obedience. Then there's the subtle pressure to conform to her ideal, not overt commands, but small nudges. Maybe she makes fun of a shirt you like. Maybe she teases you about your hobbies. Maybe she rolls her eyes when you bring up a topic you're passionate about. None of it feels serious enough to call out. So you let it slide. But over time, you start editing yourself. You become smoother, easier, more acceptable. And with each edit, you move further from the man she was originally drawn to. The counter move is to double down on the very parts of yourself she subtly pushes against. If she jokes about your style, wear it with even more confidence. If she teases your hobby, invite her to see it up close. You don't have to defend it, you live it. And here's the twist: if she can't respect the real you, you've just saved yourself years of self-erasure. What makes these traps so dangerous is that they feel like tests you can pass if you just try harder, if you just adjust one more thing. But the real test isn't whether you can keep her happy in shifting conditions. The real test is whether you can stay you when those conditions turn against you. Because the trap doesn't take you by force. It takes you by consent, one small compromise at a time. Have you ever caught yourself waiting for a text just to feel at ease? Have you noticed her pulling back when you assert yourself? Which of these moments do you think you'd struggle to hold your ground in? Tell me in the comments. The deeper you walk into the trap, the more it rewires how you see yourself. You don't notice it at first, because it happens in micro moments, not a big dramatic scene, but the quiet erosion of your own frame. 1 week, you're deciding where you want to go for dinner without hesitation. A month later, you're saying, I don't mind. Whatever you want, even when you do mind. At first, it feels like compromise. Later, it feels like you can't remember the last time you actually chose for yourself. That's the point most men miss. The trap isn't about losing the woman. It's about losing the man you were before her. And that loss doesn't happen with one big decision. It happens because you stop noticing the line between respect and self-abandonment. You tell yourself, this is what relationships are about, give and take. But giving without boundaries isn't generosity. It's slow motion self-erasure. One of the most potent weapons in these dynamics is selective reward. She'll give you moments of intimacy, excitement, or praise just enough to keep you craving the next hit. And then, without explanation, she'll withdraw it. You'll start replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you did wrong, making mental notes to do better next time. That's when you've stopped relating to her as a person and started reacting to her as a gatekeeper of your emotional state. The counter to this is brutal in its simplicity. Stop negotiating for warmth. If she's distant without cause, you don't beg for the connection back. You don't overcompensate. You maintain your own rhythm, your own life, your own standard of engagement. When the reward is no longer tied to your compliance, the control collapses. Another clear sign you're in a trap is when your boundaries become negotiable. Maybe you told her from the start you need space for your hobbies, your friends, your personal time, but slowly, those get trimmed away. She might not demand it outright instead. She'll show disappointment when you choose something that doesn't involve her. She'll make comments about how little time you spend together, even if you've given more than enough. The goal isn't to find balance. It's to make you question whether your needs are even valid. When this happens, you can't explain your way back into your boundary. You enforce it. You keep your plans, even if she's unhappy about it. You don't let guilt reframe your independence as neglect. A boundary you have to defend every week isn't a boundary, it's a negotiation you're slowly losing. The trap can also show up in the form of constant micro-critiques. They're never big enough to justify confrontation, a raised eyebrow at how you talk to a friend, a light jab about your career, a half-joking comment about your car, your apartment, your ambition. But over time, these chips at your confidence make you lean on her for validation more than you realize. You start working for her approval in areas that used to be purely yours. The move here isn't to argue against each critique that only feeds the dynamic. The move is to stop weighing your choices on her scale altogether. If you like it, if it serves you, if it aligns with your values, that's enough. You don't need her to stamp it acceptable. And paradoxically, the more you live by your own standards, the more respect you command. Here's the harsh truth. Every trap relies on the idea that you fear losing her more than losing yourself. That's why the most dangerous moment isn't when she's upset, it's when she starts to learn that you'll do anything to keep her from leaving. Once she knows that, she holds the power to shape you into whatever version serves her best, whether that's conscious or not. You need to flip that fear. You need to make it clear to yourself first, and then to her through your actions that the loss you truly can't afford is the loss of your own self-respect. That means being willing to walk away without warning, without a fight, and without a speech when the cost of staying outweighs the value of the connection. It's not about being cold. It's about being unwilling to pay with your identity. And here's where most men surprise themselves the moment you carry yourself with that kind of quiet certainty. The traps lose their teeth. The same woman who once tested you with coldness now feels the pull to stay warm. The one who withheld commitment starts leaning toward defining it. Not because you manipulated her, but because you refuse to be manipulated. If you've been in this position before, you know the feeling, that mix of relief and regret when you finally step out of the trap. Relief that you have yourself back. Regret that you didn't do it sooner. And yet, that moment is also the beginning of a new standard. Once you've seen how easy it is to give yourself away, you start building your life in a way that makes it impossible for anyone to take you piece by piece again. Have you ever found yourself slowly editing your life to fit hers? Have you noticed your boundaries shrinking without you realizing? Which part of yourself have you given up in the past just to keep someone happy? Share your story below. There's a moment every man in a trap eventually hits the quiet, sickening realization that you've been running in circles. You've been pouring in effort, thought, emotion, time, and yet you're no closer to security than you were on day one. She's still unpredictable. You're still on edge, and deep down, you know she likes it that way. The genius of the trap is that it flips the script on who's pursuing who. At the start, she showed you enough interest to make you feel like the prize, but as the game unfolded, she made you believe her approval is the prize, and you have to keep earning it. That shift is subtle. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens every time you compromise instead of confront. Every time you let a red flag slide because you don't want to ruin the vibe. Every time you think, I'll deal with it later, and later never comes. One of the most common patterns here is the moving goalpost. At first, she says she likes a man who communicates. So you make sure you check in, you share your thoughts, you keep her updated. Then she says she values ambition. So you work harder, put in longer hours, make moves she can be proud of. Then she says she wants more time together, so you start cutting back on other commitments. And yet, somehow, She's still not satisfied. That's the trap. The target keeps shifting because the point isn't for you to win. It's for you to keep playing. The counter is to stop chasing the moving target entirely. You set your own standard for how you live, communicate, and prioritize. You don't let her feedback rewrite your foundation. If she aligns with it, good. If she doesn't, you part ways before you start twisting yourself into shapes you can't sustain. Another deadly dynamic is the crisis loop. This is when, every few weeks, she stirs up drama, sometimes over nothing, sometimes over imagined slights. She pulls back, acts cold, or outright accuses you of things you didn't do. You spend days or weeks trying to patch it up, and just when you finally feel like things are good again, it happens all over. This works because it trains you to value peace so much that you'll agree to anything just to get back to it. The way out is to refuse to enter the loop. When the drama feels manufactured, you don't scramble to prove your innocence or fix her mood. You give space. You stay calm. You don't reward chaos with attention. Over time, she'll either stop because it doesn't work on you, or she'll escalate, revealing the full extent of the control she wants. Either way, you get the clarity you need. Then there's the most deceptive trap of all the almost relationship. You do all the things couples do: constant texting, dates, physical intimacy, meeting friends or family, but she keeps it unspoken. No labels, no real commitment. She says things like, "I just want to see where this goes," or "let's not ruin this with pressure." Meanwhile, you're acting like a boyfriend without the security or the respect that comes with it. Here's the hard truth: if she wanted to claim you, she would. And if she keeps you in the gray zone, it's because she benefits from the access without the responsibility. The only winning move here is to stop playing along. Either you define it together, or you step back to a level that matches the actual commitment on the table. The trap also thrives on isolating you from perspective. She'll subtly make you less likely to talk to your friends about the relationship, maybe by acting hurt when you bring up her behavior, or by making you feel guilty for sharing private matters. This is dangerous because it removes outside feedback, and without that, you normalize the dysfunction. You start believing this is just how relationships are. To counter this, you keep your circle intact. You talk to the people who knew you before her. You listen when they say you've changed in ways that don't seem like you. They can see shifts you can't from inside the bubble. The trap can't survive sunlight, and your friend's perspective is sunlight. What makes all these traps so effective is the same thing that makes them hard to escape. You think you're fighting for the relationship, when in reality, you're fighting for her approval. And those are not the same thing. One builds mutual respect, the other builds dependency. When you stop fighting for her approval, you force the relationship to stand on its actual foundation, not on how well you play the game. And here's the truth most men avoid: if the relationship can't survive without you chasing, overgiving, or self-editing, it was never built to last in the first place. Have you ever found yourself chasing her definition of good enough, only to realize it kept changing? Have you been stuck in a cycle of drama and calm so long it felt normal? How did you finally see it for what it was? Share in the comments. Here's the final truth you have to face: every trap you've walked into began with you thinking, "I can handle this." You saw the small red flags and told yourself they weren't deal breakers. You felt the discomfort and told yourself it would pass. You believed that if you just showed enough patience, enough love, enough loyalty, she'd see your worth and stop testing you. But that's not how it works. Traps don't dissolve when you prove yourself. They tighten, because every concession you make teaches her what you're willing to give up to stay. The pattern becomes predictable. She pushes, you bend. She pushes again, you bend further. Eventually, there's nothing left to bend, only pieces to break. The way out is not dramatic. It's not a screaming match, a grand speech, or a public declaration. The way out is silent, deliberate, and completely certain. You stop reacting to her manipulations, you stop negotiating with her moods, and you stop building your day around her approval. You start reclaiming your time, you go back to your hobbies, your goals, your circle, you start dressing for yourself, talking like yourself, making plans without seeking permission, and you don't announce it, you just do it. She'll notice, she'll test harder, the cold spells might lengthen, the comments might cut deeper, the bait might get sweeter. This is the moment that breaks most men because she'll try to remind you of the warmth that pulled you in at the start. The laughs, the touches, the way she made you feel like you were the only one in the room. But that's not her returning to the beginning. That's her trying to rehook you before you drift too far out of reach. You can't fall for it. You hold the line. You remember that her warmth, without consistency, is just another part of the cycle. You measure her by how steady she is when she's not trying to win you back. And if that measure fails, you walk. You have to understand walking away isn't about punishing her. It's about refusing to punish yourself by staying. It's about protecting the only thing you can never replace, the man you are when you're living on your own terms. Because no matter how intoxicating she seems, no matter how much history you've built, if being with her costs you your peace, your self-respect, or your authenticity, the price is too high. And when you leave, you do it without fanfare. You don't announce it to make her beg. You don't linger to see if she'll chase. You go. You close the chapter clean because you're not in this for ego games anymore. You're in it for freedom. The aftermath is quiet but powerful. At first, you'll feel the pull to check her socials, to replay old memories, to imagine what she's doing without you. You'll have moments where you wonder if you made a mistake. That's normal. But every time that thought comes, you remember the version of yourself you were becoming when you stayed the man who explained himself too much, waited for texts to feel okay, shrank his life to fit into hers. And you'll know you didn't lose her, you saved yourself. Over time, something changes. You stop scanning the room for her approval. You stop needing someone else to confirm your worth. You start moving differently, slower, more deliberate, more rooted in your own decisions. And the irony is, this version of you will be more magnetic than the man who chased. Because women feel the difference between a man who's performing for attention and a man who already has his own gravity. And here's the line I want you to remember, the one to keep in your head every time you feel yourself bending in ways you know you shouldn't. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.